Evening, I have with me India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in an exclusive interview with Network 18, the first that she is giving to a private channel after her budget speech. The markets have given her a huge thumbs up, with the Sensex bouncing 2,200 points. It is the highest bounce in absolute terms ever, and a 5% jump is the highest in 22 years. Let's go straight to her with our questions. Nirmala ji, it has been a really tough year for you, but I think you have every reason to smile today. As I was saying, the Sensex has really bounced 2,200 points. Did you really expect this, and how do you feel?
No, I still have not even seen what kind of reactions are coming up, because after the presenting of the budget, I'm moving from one to another in terms of meeting people and giving television and news media, print media interviews. So I've actually not followed what is the development either in the markets or anywhere else. I hope the intention of 2 or 3 major points which have come across in the budget is well understood and well received. And if it is being received, I'll be happy, because after all, we want the country to understand the intent of this government.
It has been a tough year. You know, you've presented this budget in the backdrop of a once-in-a-century pandemic, and also with a highly aggressive neighbor, external aggression from China. What were you really thinking about when you were framing this budget?
One thing was clear. If I had more resources to give, I would have given it to the people as much as we can. But we hadn't that kind of a comfort. We didn't have it then, we don't have it yet. We soon can hope to have it. And also the fact that even during the pandemic, the small amounts that we gave to some people only, not to very many, were partly also kept aside, and I don't blame anybody for it. Kept aside, saved for probably rainy days, because the uncertainty is such. So the question of giving money to people so that immediately demand push will happen, and through that people will be expected to spend, also had a question with it, saying will they spend or will they keep it aside for rainy days. Also, spending will result in immediate demand increases, no doubt, possibly if they spend, but will it be a meaningful trigger for a virtuous cycle to be triggered off? Unless that spending happens in those sectors where the multiplier will work, there's no point in spending in areas which the multipliers are, where the multipliers are weak. Yeah. That is why we have taken this route of qualitative expenditure, capex through infrastructure building, capex for health, so that you bring in such infrastructure and such facility for health, and there take an approach of holistic health, and then look at agriculture. And that is why we have gone through this route. So that is one side of the story, and the other, I certainly didn't want to fund this whole operation through taxation. By increasing tax, getting the money and then spending is not something which any of us even put on the table for consideration. So that is why I have made provision for large borrowings, with the tax buoyancy kept at a very conservative level, and with disinvestment, asset monetization and improved GST collection. I hope we'll be looking at better ways of handling our finances.
In many ways, the economic survey was a harbinger of things to come. Your government is finally now going for aggressive growth without so much worrying about what the fiscal hawks would say. For a government which has been fiscally prudent and conservative, do you think this is some kind of a U-turn or a turning point in the way you look at the future?
No, I don't, because it is one thing to be conservative and fiscally prudent, and at normal times. Even now, if you notice, when people kept telling, oh, print money, you spend, you have to spend, and I also made a conscious statement that if I don't spend now, I will only be postponing the growth, and I have to spend. That is clearly a conscious statement that I made. So given the situation that we are in, the stimulus was absolutely necessary. Quality expenditure is what we were looking for, and that is why when we've decided and when we've taken a call, I'm sure that because of the way in which we have designed it and also monitoring the qualitative expenditure that we are planning, it will definitely give us that required multiplier for the economy. And once the economy is into that virtuous cycle, income generation, revenue generation, and all of that will fall in place. So your fiscal prudence is still intact, and that is why I've given you a glide path.
Right.
Because I'm confident that this year I might have gone that far, but I can rein that back in.
But 4.5% in 25-26, given that, we were hovering between 3 and 3.5 in the last couple of years, before the pandemic.
That's true, but the pandemic and its impact is something which we'll have to keep in mind for the duration it is going to take for it to come back to that kind of a buoyancy, for that level of growth. And I can't be overestimating the economy, and I don't think the economy is in a position to even heat or overheat. Those fears are not at all there, and therefore I have to give it a reasonable time, and I didn't grudge that.
Nirmal ji, by now we know what the government thinks of rating agencies like Moody's and Standard & Poor, of them being noisy, opaque and biased. But do you still feel that there could be a threat of a ratings downgrade, and how does that bother you, or if at all?
Let me put it this way. I don't want to say I'm not bothered. At the same time, I didn't let it bother me, because otherwise, even during the pandemic, a lot of people kept asking me, is the rating agency worry stopping you from spending? Now I am spending.
Yes.
So then or now, it is not that bother. But of course, by giving a glide path, by restraining too long, like the way in 2008, it was left open and there was no closing the doors.
Yes.
And as a result, you had all the taper tantrums, and the economy was still going through a big difficulty.
Yeah.
We've learnt lessons from that, and therefore I'm confident this will be appreciated by people who are discerning on these matters.
Let's go to some of the big bang announcements first. Here execution, as everyone is saying, will obviously be the key. Your sort of privatization drive almost has a Margaret Thatcher sort of ring around it. Fairly, good in intent, bold in intent, but execution will be key. For instance, I think the figure of 1.75 lakh crore is what we would have achieved. We would have in fact achieved 2,10,000 crore going by earlier estimates this year, but we scaled that down. Now the point is, how are we to be sure that this will definitely be achieved in the coming year?
Because I think, to be fair, the estimate made in July 2019, I wouldn't want to say it was an overestimate. We expected to do that much, but of course the economy slowed down. But of course the economy's difficulties in terms of demand slowing down, stock market also being tepid, it wouldn't have been right for me to say, oh no, but I've said it in budget, I have to sell it come what may. That wouldn't have been the best approach. It's all right, I did give an estimate. I was pulled up saying, oh, you overestimated, you couldn't achieve. The situation was such that the economy at that time was not in a position to receive all these privatization, although I did say it. But I am now also saying, because ultimately when you're using public money, you're selling public assets, can I be only, no, I've given a commitment, so I have to sell irrespective of what I get out of it? I am answerable to the Parliament. I have to make sure that it is sold at a price at which I can stand up with honesty and say, no, I've done the best on the job. So 2 lakhs couldn't be achieved. Now I am sounding conservative. I have to also make sure that these companies are able to catch the eye of the investor or the buyer so that they are sold at a reasonable price.
It was heartening for the markets to hear, your reiteration that it's going to be minimum government, maximum governance, and that the governments will get out of a few sectors. Do you remain completely committed to that?
100%, and that is why I said, instead of picking up on one after the other set of companies saying, oh, this is ready for sale, that is ready for sale. State it as a policy that you will have only certain core sectors. Even there you will have only bare minimum. Earlier somebody did ask me, but didn't you say during Atmanirbhar 4 at least? I am still saying not 4, it can even be lesser. Bare minimum is what I am talking about. And that is where when people question me, but public sector banks, yes, they are doing brilliantly for the very many causes for which government wants banks to function. They are also sitting over several CASA, the current account and savings account money, for which there is no demand in the areas in which the CASAs are coming in big numbers.
Yes.
There should be some synergy, and that is why we went about amalgamating banks. We want very many more SBIs, but that doesn't mean that the sentiment that, oh my God, there is a public sector bank and therefore I can't even touch it, can be the guiding principle. We want more public sector banks which are functionally strong, professionally managed, which can meet the demands of a growing aspirational India. We want such banks. And I don't think one or two just banks like that will be able to meet this growing demand for credit and growing demand for a varied reasons from the economy. But in the process, if I'm going to be sitting around with such public sector banks, which are just not in a mood or even in a position to stand up, is it right to pour taxpayers' money to such banks?
Absolutely.
Where they